What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Swanted Productions for the love of sports. We have a jam-packed episode today. Can't even believe it myself, but I have brought in some of my Clipper friends. Yes, we are going to be talking Clippers basketball since it was such a great debate. Today, we're going to be talking about, are the Clippers a playoff team? And I have brought in my friends Nick and Rola. And before we dive into all the aspects we're going to talk about today, I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Go ahead, Rola. You got it.
All right. Hey, guys. My name is Rola, lifelong Clipper fan. And I think we're up next on the championship list.
Yes, sir. My name's Nick. It's practically the same. I'm in the same boat. I grew up in a Clipper household. My dad was a Clipper fan. When they were awful, I kind of took up the reins when they were still pretty bad. And luckily they started playing competitive. We got rid of some front office people that we shouldn't have had in the first place. And we started righting the wrongs, and here we are. I think I'm going to echo Rola's sentiment, and I think that we're up next.
Yeah, to be honest, I always loved the battle of the LA teams, even though, Clippers fans would talk so much. Even though they haven't won it yet, I would love the competitive nature behind it. So before we start this video and talk about all aspects of the Clippers team, guys, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please press that subscribe button. We talk about mostly football, basketball, but we will talk about whatever you want coming up in the future. And if you haven't subscribed, please do, because we talk about everything and anything related to sports. You don't want to miss out on this movement. Click it and you won't be disappointed. So let's get it started, guys. I can't believe as a Lakers fan, I have some Clippers fans and we're talking about the Clippers. So, but regardless to say, I'm super excited about it. When speaking about the Clippers, I think the main proponent to the team is Paul George. And what I want to talk about Paul George with you guys is, can Paul George stay healthy the whole season? Because if Paul George goes down, I do think the Clippers will be in trouble, because Paul George is now the glue of the team since Kawhi Leonard is out. Can he stay healthy? I know he's battled some injuries before, but how many games realistically do you guys see Paul George taking? Do you see him taking any games off at one point?
I can start off. So I think that because Paul George has such a heavy load, I think we're going to be, and I hate to use this word with associated with the Clippers, but I think we're going to be load managing him a little bit, just because he's basically the only quote unquote I don't even want to say superstar. He's basically the only quote unquote guy we have that we can go to guy. So yeah, I think he's going to take a few games off, but what a lot of people don't know is last year we kind of didn't have as much media attention because of the whole 3-1 thing. So people don't realize that this team actually has played a lot of games without Paul George or Kawhi, and we beat a lot of pretty good teams without them. And we have a lot of players that step up, like Reggie Jackson or Terrence Mann. That's why so many people were shocked that they went off in the playoffs. But most Clipper fans kind of knew that those were the guys once Paul George or Kawhi kind of got clamped up or whatever, that they were going to be the guys to step up. So I don't think, obviously we won't be as good without Paul George, but if Paul George takes a couple games off here and there, I don't see us losing too many games or falling back too much. Just as long as Paul George doesn't have a major injury, I think we should be good throughout the season.
I would have to definitely agree with that. I think, the last handful of years, I think the Clippers have really prioritized having depth on the bench. It was a little bit different when Doc was the coach. When Doc was the coach, it was you had that one or two go-to guys off the bench. The Clippers have had 5 of the last six man of the year candidates or whatever. So it was a little bit different when Doc was coach, but still there was an emphasis on depth. And I think now that Ty Lue's taken over, there's a little bit more of a share the ball. Everybody kind of gets a touch off the bench, which I was kind of preaching for a long time. As much as I love the Jamal Crawfords and the Lou Williams and all of that, there is a way to shut that down. And when those are the guys that you're going to for buckets off the bench the entire season, when that does get shut down, a lot of the role players off the bench have a tendency to fall a little flat. So I think last year we were really, really deep. Guys like Nicholas Batum, obviously Terrence Mann took a huge leap, and I think he honestly would have taken that same leap if Doc had given him some time in the bubble. I told Rola this the other day. We might not have blown that 3-1 lead if Terrence Mann was given the time that he was given last year, but that's neither here nor there. I think last year we were really deep, and I think this year we've kind of constructed a lineup that is made for load managing Paul George. Pat Bev will always be one of my favorite Clippers of all time, one of my favorite basketball players in general. I mean,
the menace himself.
Having that guy on your team is, you really can't describe it until you've seen it. But unfortunately, after that trade, after the dust settles and you kind of get over the emotional aspect of losing a guy that's so important, such a vocal leader as Pat, you look at what we got back. We got Eric Bledsoe, who can take guys off the dribble a little bit more. He's not the shooter that Pat is. But, to that same point, Pat Bev was kind of more of a catch and shoot threat. He couldn't create his own shot to the effect that Bledsoe can. And even in the first game of the season against the Warriors, we lost, but Bledsoe was, he wasn't pulling up for three off the dribble, but he was taking guys off the dribble, taking it to the hoop. And he's so strong that he was just finishing through contact, finishing through what should have been a foul call or two, but that is what it is. But I think we are built this year with guys like Bledsoe, with Terrence Mann, hopefully taking another step in his game, Nick Batum, and then even amongst the starters, Reggie Jackson proved that he can be a bucket when he's feeling confident. Marcus Morris was the leading scorer on a Knicks team only 3 years ago. I think Zoo can take a step when he's fed the ball. We have guys, coming off the bench and in the starting lineup that can really, help out on the games or 2 or 3 or whatever, where we're load managing PG, or if he, takes a knock here or there and needs to take a game off. I think we're equipped to be able to handle that for sure.
So that actually brings me to my next point. And I won't lie, I was actually quite impressed by the Clippers once Kawhi went down last year, how they continued to feed off of this positive energy, that they were kind of still a team. They were still whole. I guess you could call it the culture. And I was quite impressed on that because they managed to get by the Jazz, the number 1 seed. So giving credit that Donovan Mitchell did have an ankle injury, but injuries are a part of the game. And, if we said that injuries weren't, then the whole last year could have been different. But that brings me to my next topic, is the others for the Los Angeles Clippers, because while a lot of people stepped up, I guess you say Batum, Morris, especially Reggie Jackson stepped up in the playoffs. Terrence Mann, I can't remember if he dropped 40-point game at one point.
39.
Yeah. 39, very close. But the question I have for you guys as Clippers fans is, can the others stay consistent? Because yes, a playoff series is completely different from a regular season. And the topic we're debating today is, can the Clippers be a playoff team? So even though they did perform very well last year in the playoffs, can they perform every night through an 82-game season consistently? Will there be ups and downs? Or do you guys see this team really just taking off and meshing well and picking up where they left off? Where do you see a regular season versus a playoff series with the Clippers?
I think it's a really good question. I think Ty Lue, one thing that I've known just from, watching him in Cleveland, and just even his first year with the Clippers as a head coach, the dude coaches for the playoffs. And so there definitely are going to be times where, we'll throw out kind of wonky lineups, or we'll, rest half of our starters and play some of our young guys, which we do have a really good group of young guys. I didn't even touch on that. Play some of the younger guys, give them some run. There's going to be a little bit of tinkering, and all of that I think is to prepare for the playoffs. So I think, with most teams, there's going to be a little bit of a feel it out, even though we did run back most of the same squad last year. So I think we're going to get a little help in that department as far as like not having to find another, new form of chemistry or whatever. We have a lot of the same guys. I think there's going to be some highs and lows. I think most of that's going to come from, managing injury, which, like you said, Robbie, earlier, is inevitable. It's part of the game. Managing injury, giving guys, load managing guys, giving guys the night off, or playing guys in different roles. I think there's going to be times when Justice Winslow plays the point, or sometimes he'll play the 5, or Bledsoe will come off the bench and Terrence Mann will start. So there's going to be a lot of tinkering, and I think that's all to prepare for the playoffs. But, as a byproduct of that, I think there are going to be regular season games that we might drop. Maybe still focus on some of the stuff that we were able to learn from those losses and carry that on to a playoff series, hopefully.
Okay. Rola, what about you?
So kind of to piggyback off of Nick, I think one thing about this team is that one thing about Ty Lue is that we really value high energy players and high energy plays. And I think that is going to win us a lot of games, that even if we're playing poorly, I think just our energy, Terrence Mann getting rebounds, getting offensive rebounds. You got Luke Kennard, hitting threes that when we need them. You got Zubac getting offensive rebounds, getting blocks. And I think with Ty Lue, he's not afraid to sub out players if they're playing poorly, or if they're not hitting their shots, or if they're kind of down in the dumps. And he's not afraid to sub you out for the last guy on the roster. So I think with that, there are going to be highs and lows. Every team goes through highs and lows. Like, you can't tell me a team that's perfect, other than, I guess, like the
Lakers are already going through their lows.
Like,
it's early in the season, man.
That's regular season, but like at the end of the day, there's highs and lows. No team is going to win 82 games. So like, you just have to. I think with the Clippers, we just have to go out there and play hard every single night. And I think with that energy, we're going to win a lot of games. And obviously, there's going to be some games where Paul George is not going to hit. Terrence Mann is not going to hit his open threes or whatever. Luke Kennard is not going to hit his shots. Marcus Morris is going to do some stupid stuff or whatever here and there. I think at the end of the day, our team has a lot of chemistry, and I think that will help us. I mean, some of our players, like, and I keep talking about Terrence Mann, but I think he's going to take a very, very large leap this year.
100%.
Because I don't think a lot of players play with the energy that he plays with. And for example, like in the playoffs, when we beat the Jazz, Rudy Gobert literally couldn't keep up with this guy.
Defensive player of the year, Rudy Gobert.
He was dunking on the defensive player of the year. He was spreading this guy out. And Terrence Mann has that much energy. He's 25. He has that much energy to just run around and do what he needs to do, that a lot of these older players and a lot of these regular players cannot keep up with. And I think that is going to really, 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 really help him this year. And I think that's going to help the team in general. When Paul George is off the floor, that we have a lot of players that can step up.
I think you guys might have answered my next question, but my question for you guys was going to be, who is the X factor or the glue on this team? Besides, obviously, we could say Paul George is, the motor of the engine, right? Like, we could say that, but besides Paul George, right, who is the X factor and who is the glue of this team? Who makes this team run? Is it going to be Terrence Mann this season?
Well, you got this one.
Okay, I can go first. So I would say the engine of the team is going to be Paul George. Obviously, he's going to be the go-to guy. When we need a shot, when we need a bucket, he's going to be the guy we give the ball to. That's like every other team has at least one player like that. I think the X factor for our team is going to be Reggie Jackson.
Okay.
And I think that because I know Paul George is clutch. but sometimes he kind of gets in his head a little bit too much. And
It's that
one guy
media.
that has a god tier confidence is Reggie Jackson. You can literally be standing under him and he will still take the deep three, and cash it in your face. And I think that's one thing that helped us a lot in the playoffs because people weren't expecting that from Reggie Jackson, other than like Clipper fans, because we were the only ones who were really watching the team. So I think Reggie Jackson is going to take, I don't want to even say take a big leap because I think he's already all-star caliber that he's shown from the playoffs. And
He
I think
did
people are going to
perform very
realize that
nicely in playoffs.
I think people
He
are going to
earned that
realize that
contract.
he's
He
that
earned
guy.
it.
Yeah, he definitely did. And I think when Paul George isn't is being double teamed or this or that, I think Reggie Jackson is going to be that next guy. Paul George is going to pass off to Reggie Jackson, and I think Reggie Jackson has that ability to hit big time shots. And if not, then we have the third guy, Terrence Mann, who's there to get rebounds, who's there to hype up the players, who's there to provide the energy to hit open threes.
Nick,
And
would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, Rolla pretty much hit the nail on the head. I think what's so fun about this particular Clipper team and this season is, I do think that, Reggie Jackson's probably the first that comes to mind in terms of, if our first guy can't get it done, who's going to be the next guy, especially in terms of just getting buckets, because that's what Reggie Jackson has proved that he can do over the last, 365 days. But I think the beauty of this team, and the reason why I just enjoyed watching this particular team so much is everything's very egalitarian too. Like if you look at last season, and this is kind of to piggyback on the point that we were making earlier of just like the depth, but there were games where one guy would step up, and then the next week another guy would step. There was a game against Atlanta where Ty Lue sat the entire starting lineup because they were playing so bad. Everybody was healthy, I think, for the most part. Sat the entire starting lineup because they were so bad, and subbed in like the bottom of the, I hate saying that, but like the bottom of the bench. And Luke Kennard took over that game, hit a half-court shot at the buzzer to send it to the half, I think, and we ended up winning that game, coming back from double digits. And the next game is a Terrence Mann game, and then it's like the Reggie Jackson and Detroit game last year where he ended up hitting the buzzer beater, or it wasn't a buzzer beater, but it was a go ahead jumper to win the game. There's games where Zoo will be big. Nick Batum won a game against either the Heat or the Suns last year. I hate the next man up phrase, but we really do encapsulate that on this team where, if one guy is having an off night, someone's willing to step in and do what they can to win. And whether it's an offensive rebound or going for 30 or even just getting a steal to seal the game or something like that, guys on this team really pride themselves in making winning plays and contributing to win. And I think it's just a matter of everybody on this team as of right now, really enjoys playing with each other. And there's this sense of trust and there's this sense of camaraderie. I mean, if you look at Reggie Jackson's exit interview after the playoffs last year, he was super emotional, saying like, these are my ride or dies. Like, these are my guys. And I want to win with these guys.
So this is where it gets tricky for me because going into the season, I had the Clippers ranked as the number 8 seed in the West. Okay. You guys probably will disagree with that. I see them possibly slipping to the 7 seed. I don't know if they can make the top 6 just because the West is absolutely loaded. So, especially with the 4, 5, 6, they're always 1 game, 2 games apart. It comes down to who wins against who wins in the conference, division. And that's what I want to get into next. And this is why I put the Clippers at number 8. So we're going to bring up the division. And in my mind, it is arguably one of the hardest divisions in NBA basketball. So the Clippers, out of, I believe it's 20 of the 80 something games, they have to play each team 3 or 4 times. They play the Los Angeles Lakers, who in due time will shape up. They play the Sacramento Kings, who I think they started off, they're 1-1 at the moment, but they look way better. The defense is way better. The culture is looking better. So I don't think the Kings will be, let's say, as much of a joke as they have been the last couple of years. They got the Phoenix Suns, who just went to the NBA championship, and they just lost to the Golden State Warriors, who the Lakers lost to as well. They're looking really good, and sometimes you just can't stop Steph Curry. So what makes you guys think that the Clippers are going to be a playoff team if they have to face all these tough opponents? And realistically, how do you see them record-wise turning out at the end of the season against all these good teams?
I think, I completely agree with you. The Pacific Division it's a gauntlet, especially this year. The Suns are coming off of a finals appearance. Steph's already looking like, he's in full form yet again. And the Lakers are obviously going to be, at the very least, a very competent regular season team. I do think, like you said, it's going to take them a little bit of time to gel, just because there's a lot of personality, a lot of different pieces. There's a lot of age on that team. So it's going to take them a little bit longer, but I think once they figure it out, they'll be a good regular season team. Playoffs, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But and then I think the Kings have all the talent in the world. I think with them, it's just a matter of front office and coaching. I don't think Luke Walton's a good coach, unfortunately, to say it. But
Lakers fans can't agree with you at points. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just think that them going public with saying that Bagley is not going to be in the opening night rotation, and I think their issue runs with their front office, because De'Aaron Fox is one of the most underrated players in the NBA right now, and Buddy Hield's a bucket. They have Halliburton's a really good player. Davion Mitchell might be a rookie of the year. Who knows? But I think they're probably not going to be as competitive as they might seem right now, just because I think that they're going to be limited by the decisions that the front office makes, and then the coaching and how they conduct their business. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, we are going to be playing these teams more than the rest of the league. But I really do think that because of our depth and because of the different combinations of players and lineups that we can throw out there, I think that keeps opponents on their toes, and we can kind of assimilate to different scenarios and different teams. If we play the Lakers, we'll probably go a little bit bigger. If we play the Warriors like we did the first game of the season, we'll go a little bit smaller. We'll probably run Nick Batum or Justice Winslow at the 5 a lot, Paul George, Marcus Morris at the 5. So we do have the depth to try and kind of adjust to different lineups and different opponents. And I think that's where that kind of comes in handy. Obviously, it's going to be tough. Being in the Pacific Division, especially now, is no joke. But yeah, I don't know. I like our chances against a lot of these teams. Not going to say we're going to win out at all, but I think we'll be competitive, especially in division matchups this year.
Okay, Rola, what do you think about this division? How do you see the Clippers partaking?
Yeah, so I think this is one area where Nick and I disagree a little bit. I'm kind of leaning more towards your side, Robbie. I think that the Clippers are probably going to be on the lower end of the playoff table on the West. I'm predicting, I wouldn't say 8. I'm predicting like a 6 seed.
Okay.
And I kind of just because I go back to last year and I look at the performance that like Steph Curry, for example, the season he had, and the Warriors still were the 8th seed and ended up not making the playoffs. And I think overall our team is much better than that Warriors team was. But I think that with our team, Paul George taking time off, like we're gonna have highs and lows. I think we're gonna be around a 6th seed. But if you look, like, this division is insane, honestly.
It is.
The Golden State Warriors, they've taken a big step. You got Jordan Poole balling. I think he's going to be a huge piece for them this year. Klay Thompson is going to come back. I think Klay Thompson is going to come back a monster. Just looking at like the way Kevin Durant came back after his injury, I think Klay Thompson is going to come back in a similar way.
I hope. One
which
can
is going to
hope.
put, I think, the Warriors like in a top 4 spot.
Yeah, I
The
had the
Suns,
Warriors. I had the Warriors if they do stay healthy. In my other videos, I had the Warriors at number 4 if Clay and everyone can stay healthy.
right? Yeah, so we're on the same wave with that. The Phoenix Suns, I don't know. I don't know about the Phoenix Suns because I think that I don't want to say they got lucky last year, because they played really well.
Injuries. They played a lot of teams that didn't have their
Exactly,
best players.
exactly. I think injuries very, very much helped them out. I think I see. I'm one of those guys who thinks that they would have still beaten the Lakers even if LeBron and AD didn't get injured, because I think they wanted it more. But I think in the regular season, the
That's
Phoenix
what's
Suns,
tricky, is
the,
because Phoenix is a really good regular season team.
yeah,
So when
no,
they have to play all these teams like 4 times, do you see them
right.
like equaling 500? Do you see them with a winning record? Like it's unfortunate that they have to play all these teams, and same with the Lakers. That's just the way the dice rolls, but this contributes to the record, which ultimately decides where you are at in playoffs.
Right. So I think with the Phoenix Suns, I mean, we played a 6 game series against them. On all of the games that they've won, other than the one Chris Paul dropped like 40 points, they beat us by like buzzer beater. The alley oop buzzer beater. They beat us by like 2 points in the game one, and we beat them twice. So I don't think that this Clippers team without Kawhi is that much worse than the Phoenix Suns. In a regular season game, I don't see this. If we have Paul George healthy, or like a healthy Clippers team versus a healthy Suns, I don't think it's impossible for the Clippers to win 4 out of 4 games against them. I don't see it as crazy to say that the
Interesting.
Clippers are going to win 3 out of 4 games against them. Um, Again, with like this, I don't want to go over what Nick said with the Sacramento Kings because I basically agree with him there. And then with the Los Angeles Lakers, I mean, the one thing about the Clippers is that we play hard against the Lakers every
It is
single
true.
time.
It is true.
With like, and I know like Lakers fans make fun of the Clippers, saying like, "Oh, we have our like game like our Christmas Day banners or whatever against the Lakers," but the Clippers play hard against the Lakers. So in the regular season, I mean, I don't know if it's a guarantee that the Lakers are going to win, even if the Lakers figure out all of their issues that they've obvious that's pretty apparent right now. I think the Clippers are against these teams in our division. I would take the Clippers in a lot of these games.
All right, fair enough. So to end this video, that's what we're going to talk about is where do we see the Clippers ending up? For me, I see them at the 8th seed, possibly the 7th seed. I'm not sure if they're going to finish in the top 6. It's possible they could reach the 6th seed, but I'm going to keep them around 7 or 8. My official ranking was number 8, but with non-bias, because I know you guys are diehard Clippers fans,
Of course.
realistically, where do we see the Clippers ending up?
I I would agree with Rola to a point that I think that the realistic pick is probably 6, maybe 5. But if I were to just take, everything into account, I think there's teams that are going to disappoint people, especially right off the bat this season. I think the Mavericks are going to be one of those teams. That's a whole nother topic of discussion. But Portland, I think there's certain teams that are either going to get off to a slow start or certain like aspects of their team makeup are going to be, exploited a little bit. So I think that if I, with all of that, into consideration, I would probably say that the Clippers are going to finish 4th in the West.
Interesting. That is high. That is high up there. Okay, fair enough. We'll see when it comes to the end of the season, Rilla, where we at with the Clippers and where
Yeah.
do we see
So
them?
like I said, I'm putting the Clippers around 6. I
Okay.
could see us dropping to 8. Like I said, with how hard Steph Curry played last year and what he did last year, he still ended up like his team was the 8th seed, and they didn't even make the playoffs because of that plan.
Yeah.
I'm thinking this West is unreal.
It
Like
is.
Of course.
I think that the Clippers are in that second tier of teams in the West. I think the top tier teams are for the regular season are like the Jazz. I think the Lakers are in the top tier teams. I think the Suns are in the top tier, and then basically to me there's like a second tier like Clippers, Mavs, Nuggets.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know. I think that a lot of these teams, like we won't really know positioning until like the last few weeks of the season, kind of like last season. Like these teams are so good that they're going to be, to me, like 1-2 games apart, and it's kind of going to be a toss up to see who wants what matchup for the first round of the playoffs, just like what happened last season.
Yeah,
So
that's
I'm
always how
thinking
it
six to
is.
eight is a
Like I believe for the West, I know for the East, I believe fifth, sixth, or fourth, fifth, and sixth seed were all determined by one game,
Oh yeah.
and it was very similar to the Western Conference too. And the Western Conference is so loaded. It's absolutely loaded. And that's what's so dangerous, that any team can beat any team if you don't 100% bring it. So I guess we're just going to have to wait and find out on the Clippers. But I want to say thank you guys for coming on the show. Thank you for joining Swanted Productions for the Love of Sports. I was so happy that we could get on here, debate about the Clippers, where we see them ending up. Before we end this video, do you guys have anything else to say?
Just want to say, go ahead, Roy.
I was gonna say, no, I'm good. Thank you for having me. This was fun, and I'd like to come back.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah, same, man. This is great. You do a great job. Really appreciate you having us on here. I love taking. I'm getting. Hold on one sec. Sorry about that. I appreciate you having us on here. I love talking basketball. Whether it's about the Clippers or even the Lakers, I can talk basketball all day. So I really appreciate you having us on here and just hashing it out a little bit.
Of course. Well, you guys will always be welcome on the show. We will always be having people on the show. My name is Robert Swan. This is For the Love of Sports. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time. Everybody be safe and have a great night.